Welcome to the Dr. Dad's podcast, where a naturopath and chiropractor come together each week to share lifestyle medicine, health advice, and inspiring interviews with some of the top experts in health and wellness, bringing you the latest in nutrition, exercise, ancient healing, toxins and detox, your microbiome, mindset, hormones, brain, and much more. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to experience growth daily.
Hey everybody, Dr. Dad's coming at you today. We have been gone for a couple weeks, huh, Nick?
We've been somewhere in the clouds, I think.
Yeah, so me and Dr. Nick, we went on an amazing retreat in Vancouver, Canada, and we're going to have an episode coming up probably pretty soon, right, brother? Talking about that experience. But today we have a really, really fun treat for you guys. In the past, you guys have heard us talk about sound and the healing power of sound and what it can do for us. Can be healed by it, but I want to get into really with this really fun guy. His name's Ian Morris. He's the founder of Listening to Smile. And Ian's going to share his journey of how he kind of had some self-discoveries with the power and the healing of sound and frequency and where it has taken him in his life. So really quick before we get into it with Ian, let's talk a little bit, and I'm going to introduce kind of where all this experience comes from. So Ian's got over 20 years experience as a musician, and he's studied and worked in the performing arts field all of his life. What led him down this path of sound healing and frequency was his own personal struggle and journey through chronic illness and the anxiety and depression that came from being sick. So once he started exploring sound and frequency using pure tones, he began creating music with these tones and other sacred frequencies to help facilitate his own healing. The results he got were astonishing beyond anything he could imagine. Even his friends and family noticed the miraculous change in his health, and this led him to inquire more about what he was doing different. They wanted to experience this too, and thus that's why we have this amazing thing called Listening to Smile. So Ian's been working with small groups in his community, and he's studied how frequency affects many different ailments, illnesses, and disease of both mind and body. And he's even built a sound frequency table so that the body could be completely immersed in the vibration of the tones in these frequencies. So Ian's taken feedback from doctors, psychologists, holistic practitioners to streamline and solidify his services. And his goal is really to create a customizable experience. So he has these really neat programs that he develops for clients, and they get shocked when they see these amazing results. And we'll talk today again why this is so powerful. I've experienced these results. I'm sure Dr. Nick can really talk a little bit about that as well, what he's experienced. And so here you guys have it. Ian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're excited to get into it today, man. This is a fun topic for me and Dr. Nick, and this is just one of those fun things we get to dive in and kind of geek out on a little bit. So, Nick, you want to add anything, brother, before we get started?
We've had 2 episodes now that have dove into the science and so the sacred ancient practice of chanting and using sound as a vibrational healing tool. And I mean, as you said, we love to dive into all things geeky when it comes to awakening the healing potential in the body. So I want to hear a little bit more in detail, Ian, how this absolutely transformed your world and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, so I think when people like myself who've never experienced any kind of illness and kind of, when I was younger, I didn't get colds and I didn't get sick a lot. So when this hit, it was something that was like foreign to my psyche and my body. I was having migraine headaches so bad that there was lights in my vision. I was having breakouts with food that I had ate my whole life and never had problems with, autoimmune responses. I was having nausea and vomiting. I was having, digestive issues. My whole body was just taxed. I was just experiencing a large gambit of issues and symptoms. And so I think it made it really hard for the mainstream medical community to kind of pinpoint what it exactly was, that was going on. And so when that happens, I think it's a very scary thing if you've never experienced pain thresholds like that, as well as just everything you do starts coming under scrutiny. You're like, well, if I eat this, maybe that's why I was feeling this way. And then, it starts playing mind tricks with you. So it's like, I always tell people, it's like the most lonely feeling in the world when you feel like hopeless and desperate and you don't really know what's causing it. It really messes with your mind. So in that moment, I think what I noticed when I first started diving into sound was that when I put the headphones on, one, it canceled out my external environment. And then two, I always say frequency is the great disruptor, which is all these patterns, these habits, and all of these stories that we start telling ourselves, it's programming. And when those headphones go on, I feel like it's a disruption of that programming. And I always tell people it's kind of like sitting in the calmness of a hurricane, like the eye of the storm. When that frequency starts playing, your body starts responding. Your brain waves change. Your body on a cellular level starts changing. With about 15 to 20 minutes exposure to music, there's studies that they've done that have shown like the cells in the mouth will start changing within 3 to 5 minutes when you have headphones on listening to binaural beats. And, the whole body starts responding in that same way. And so it's a very powerful tool for just breaking that cycle of fear, worry, anxiety, and it helps to set in a moment of calmness for the body. And I think from that, you can actually become an observer and say, okay, let me recalibrate and let me get to a new mindset where I can try to figure out on a logical level without the panic and anxiety and fear and desperation that comes, and to really look at some of the symptoms you're going through, some of the emotional states that are coming up for you, and just kind of start making a plan of action in that moment of like setting a mantra, setting a mindset where you're shifting the focus from desperation to empowerment. And I think that's, from the first 3 to 5 sessions that I was introduced, through binaural beats and pure tones with headphones, that's what it did for me. And so, in a few months period, I started seeing changes in the way that I was thinking, my mindset, my perspective on life. And I really feel like it even started helping me with my dyslexia. So in that power, empowerment, I was able to make better choices with food and to start really studying nutrition and kind of looking at, okay, if I eat these foods, they're not whole and they're not nutritious and they're not giving me something to move forward on my path of healing. They're actually in the moment giving me that sugar or that sodium or that, addiction craving to kind of stimulate me in the moment. But then, 30 minutes later, half a day later, I'm feeling sick from these choices. So I think that the empowerment helped me to make better choices and moving forward, but it was just such a disruptor of that desperation and that hopelessness that it was something that I was like, this really works, and I'm going to jump in and go head first into this because it's just such a powerful tool.
Mm-hmm. I imagine that when people are listening, they're like, so you just put headphones on and listen to music and yeah, all this magic started to happen.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just, again, revert people back to a couple of the other episodes we listened to on sound healing. And we want your perspective on why or what's happening with these sound frequencies.
So you'll hear people like Dr. Joe Dispenza talk about natural state of being. And I think that is what sound healing is it's a tuning. It's a recalibration or a tuning of the body to help it remember its natural state of being. And so whenever there's a disease or an illness present, something's out of alignment vibrationally, whether it's an organ or a system in the body, or whether it's an emotional mindset that is really toxic to the body. One of the things I learned for myself, and I see it ripple out with all the clients that we work with, is that, in my opinion, stress is the number one start. That's the root cause of pretty much everything that the human body is dealing with, even if it's environmental, even if it's nutritional, but because the body is a miraculous tool. It's an amazing thing. Its capacity for healing and learning is amazing. But I think a lot of times we block it with our mind and our emotional state that creates a lot of limitations. And so when you have those limitations and those stories you're telling yourself, and then you tax the body with stress, because we're not meant to operate with, the levels of cortisol and adrenaline 24/7, and it starts taxing the body, and the body looks for ways to replenish that source. and it starts pulling from the immune system, digestive process. It starts pulling from even mental, processing capabilities. And that is the start. That's where we start going downhill. And so what sound does is it's a recalibration. It's something that helps to introduce vibrations of pure tones. A lot of people will call them like sacred frequencies that help the body to say, man, something's not feeling right. Like I'm feeling this, and the brain waves try to mimic the sounds that are in the headphones, and the body responds in a very similar way, because we're made up of water. And I'm sure everyone has seen like the videos of cymatics online, YouTube, where you see these beautiful patterns, geometric patterns that form in water, and our body is responding the same way to these vibrations. And so it's trying to remember its natural state of being. So it's just like a tuning fork for the body.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. I mean, if you go and listen to heavy metal and you don't like heavy metal, you have this whole visceral experience where it's like nails on a chalkboard for you. And that's how you're, if anyone listening loves heavy metal, do your thing, of course. But it's, we're so affected by sound. I mean, hearing screeching cars going by, like you kind of cringe. It's like, it literally is affecting your entire nervous system.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing I want to add here, and this is just for our listeners' benefit, like Nick was saying earlier, so you're not just thinking, oh, I put on headphones and it's just supposed to do this. When you look at a lot of medicine that is being used worldwide right now, it's all using frequency at the foundation of how they're tapping into our physiology to make changes. There's so much things out there that everyone's using literally on a daily basis to try to help with their health. It's all using frequency. And one thing that everybody needs to understand is your cells communicate through frequency. There's an energetic piece to that. It's not just biochemical. That's another layer that's taking place in the body. But at the deepest root of what you are, and what we've talked about in past episodes, which is what we call the connective tissue matrix, this is a whole other communication networks that's processing these vibrations, these frequencies, these sounds. And like Ian's saying, is it's helping us recalibrate back to more of a rhythm that we're in tune with to promote health in our system. And another thing I want to add there is, he's talking about how, starting to eat the right foods and have better habits, and how his habits started changing when she started calibrating. These are just energy returns. We heard Tiago Prem talk at the retreat, right? About like, what kind of things are you doing daily that are positive energy returns for you versus ones that are negative? And we all get caught up in this in our daily lives, and this busyness of like, sometimes they're on autopilot and they're not realizing that all the things that they're doing, or the bulk of what they're doing, is putting them in debt for these energy returns versus making these deposits that they need. And what an easy way, right, to have a good energy return of just hooking yourself up in the morning or in the evenings to some headphones and just spending even just 10 to 15 minutes listening to some tracks to recalibrate this system that just needs this recalibrating because of the hustle and bustle that we all deal with in daily life.
Yeah, I'll put one more thing on that, which is a lot of the groups that we hold these sessions, we call them sonic meditations, where it's like a group immersion, sound immersion, with surround sound speakers, subwoofers, and we have lights and aromatherapy. So it's really setting up an atmosphere for people to come in to kind of have release work and let go of stress and worry, and just kind of return to themselves. And in those groups that we're holding, what's really interesting is a lot of people will say, beyond the woo-woo, beyond the spiritual talk and all of the, cosmic elements and mathematical elements, like, why does this work? And like the thing that I always come back to is like, when we're in the womb and being acclimated to this world, the first thing that we're getting, dosed with is sound and vibration. And that's how we start learning in the womb right from the beginning, is sound and vibration. And when we're born and, we're in that care of our mother and father, the holding, the nurturing that goes on is a very vibrational thing. And so I tell people, fast forward now till you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, and what is the thing that we're looking for is the same thing that came from being in that womb, and the same thing that came from being in the care of our parents when we're young and we're crying and we want to be held. A lot of times there's no words exchanged. It's just vibrations of energy, saying, hey, I've got you, you're safe. And we can create that for ourselves. And I think a lot of times some people can do it through vocal toning and meditation without headphones. But there's a lot of people, myself included, who have a really hard time sitting still and quieting the mind, because I'm hustle bustle. My mind's very creative. I'm like, I could do this, and I'm all over the place. But when I put those headphones on, it comes back to they're the great disruptor. Almost, every single person that we've introduced our music to, they will say, I've never meditated before. This is extremely hard. But as soon as I put those headphones on, 5 to 10 minutes, I was asleep. It just knocked me out. And I think it's because a lot of people have a hard time settling into themselves. And I think the frequencies, the way that we layer them, we take a root frequency, and then we make a mid octave and a bass octave, and we lay that together. And then we put the song structure, the melody, and the chordings on top of that. So when people are listening with the headphones, they're getting that constant, those harmonic tones constant through the whole song, and then they're still getting in a subliminal way, something that's subtle, and a lot of people wouldn't notice it, but if you took it out, they would notice, like this, people will say to us, your music sounds different. And the reason that it sounds different is because of that harmonic layering. And I believe that harmonic healing is a very powerful tool for disrupting those normal processes that the brain get, the mundane, repetitious, habits that we start forming, and it just disrupts that, and it allows people to be like, whoa, this feels different. My brain feels different. I feel different in my thoughts. And so it allows them to settle in. And I think for the first time for me, I was like, this is the first time I've experienced peace in this way, was when I put on those headphones and experienced the frequency that way.
That's awesome. That's such a great description. And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. You talk about these harmonic layers that you put in. Are those the pure tones? And for the listeners, pure tones are, I'd like you to explain that a little bit more. Like, there's 528, I think, which is for the heart, and there's different number of frequencies and how they correlate to the different organ systems. Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So a pure tone, I always tell people, is kind of like a note mantra. So like, when you get a mantra, you get a saying, or you get a word that you're a vocal tone, that you're a vowel sound that you're focusing on, and you're repetitiously creating that. And what that repetition does is that if you're dedicated and kind of targeted with that, you're going to start disrupting patterns in your thoughts. It's going to make you focus on this mantra, this word, this vowel sound for 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. And what happens is the brain's normal functions of wandering start getting focused and brought back in, targeted. And so when people learn how to do that and then use that focus for their intention setting, it's a very powerful tool for meditation. So I always tell people pure tones is just a constant note. A lot of times you'll hear them on like YouTube, just a ooh. It's almost like the hearing test, like when we were younger, and they'd be like, raise your hand if you can hear the tone. It's like, it's very similar to that. It's what a pure tone is. And so for a lot of people, it's a very boring thing to jump into right off the bat. But I always tell people it's like medicine. I feel like it's a very clinical approach. They're very powerful, but you have to stick with them. And if you stick with a tone for 10, 15, 20 minutes a day, every single day for 2 weeks, you see these miraculous breakthroughs where people start saying, when I first start listening, I'm really bored. And then I start kind of getting into it. And then it starts breaking apart. Like I hear all these multi-facet tones. And I'm like, it's just one tone. And they're like, why does it sound different? And I said, because your brain is starting to process it in a different way. And so when they study people who are using binaural beats and pure tones with headphones, they start seeing brain activity change at about 10 to 15 minutes because it's the mind. The mind is resisting. Like, this is boring. I don't want to sit here and do this, And then when they settle into it, the brain starts reacting accordingly. And I always tell people that I feel that with dyslexia, it's like cobwebs of frustration in the brain. And when I started listening to pure tones, I felt like it started wiping the cobwebs away and creating new neuro pathways where I was expanding my observation and perception, my just being able to retain information in a different way. And so it was just a very powerful tool. So pure tones are almost, in my mind, a clinical tool. They're a little boring, but they're very powerful, and it's something that I wouldn't, after a 2-week period, I would really stick with more frequency-minded music and come back to it as like a hit of aspirin, something, or, something that someone is wanting to use in a small quantity, but they need, like, they're having a headache that's so severe, like, let's put on this pure tone and for 5 to 10 minutes and it's gone. And then, okay, we're done with that, but let's keep listening to these vibrationals, frequencies through, pop music or some meditation music throughout the day and still getting dosed with it, but it's not so up in your face and like powerful disruptor in that way, So that's what I would say a pure tone is. And then there's a lot of different perspectives on how the frequencies line up with the body, and like there's different researchers in every field that have points of view of what that would be. But one of my favorite is the solfeggio scale, and it's probably what we work with about 75% of the time. It's a big part of what we do because I've just had such powerful results with myself as well as the people, clients that we work with. But it comes from the Gregorian chants, and it's tuned, it's A equals 444. So standard tune music is in 440, so it's just, 4 hertz up. But so it's 444 hertz, and then that's where the Gregorian chants, originated. And a lot of classical music, when the conductors want a brighter sounding string, like on the strings, like violin, cello, and all that, they'll tune up to like 444 just to have that brighter pitch, with their music. And everyone has seen the results, from studying classical music, whether it's an A equals 432 or 444, and, baby development, brain development, calmness, just creative thinking skills, all these things that they've studied with classical music. And I believe it's the tunings. It's not just the busyness of the music. I've had a lot of clients who listen to classical music and they say, that's too busy for me, that gives me anxiety. I can't listen to that, too many notes. So I think that when you take those tunings and then combined it with slower scale, like beats per minute, like maybe a 50 beats per minute or 40 or 30 beats per minute instead of like 120. Some classical music will be from like 80 to 120, 140 beats per minute, depending on what you're getting into. So I think when you slow the beats down, the tempo, beats per minute, and I think when you have a minimalist approach with the music, that's when you see the biggest results with the clients, is the frequency combined with that minimalism and that kind of slower beats per minute. Because what it does is humans and songbirds are some of the few species that actually start mimicking with our heartbeat as well as our brain activity the beats of the music, like the beats per minute of music. So if I was having an anxiety attack and was in, fear and worry, and I put on headphones with like a 30 beats per minute, what that's doing is it's calibrating the body. It's telling it, whoa, you're going too fast. Let's slow it down, And it's kind of like a traffic light. Like, here's the yellow light. Now we're going to red. Let's just stop this whole process and slow down and recalibrate and kind of come at this from a different perspective. And I think that without music, that would have been impossible for me. It was something that was very challenging. Like, it's easy for someone to be like, hey, man, just calm down, chill out. You're going to be fine. But the music does it in such a way that it almost facilitates that mood for you. It's just something that, like a binaural beat, when you have 100 beats per minute, and 100 hertz in the left ear, 104 in the right ear, the brain, what happens is the hemispheres of the brain actually synchronize. And so in that synchronization, the middle brain, people refer to, like, I hear this in the middle of my brain, like the tones, it's like it's coming from inside the middle of my brain. And the reason that is the brain doesn't like that disorder. So when it synchronizes and brings it together as one tone, it actually hears the difference between the two tones, which would be 4 hertz. And so the brain actually goes into a mimic pattern where it starts mimicking that 4 hertz pattern. And what that does is it facilitates for you the theta brainwave pattern. And so in that, it's hypnotherapists love that, theta pattern, because it's a highly programmable state for the subconscious. So they'll use that And, they'll use that binaural, theta healing so that they can reprogram through intention and through focus keywords to help people kind of break habits and kind of retrain and reprogram the brain. So it's like both pure tones and binaural beats are amazing tools, very basic. And it's just like you guys said, when you put on the headphones, can it really be that easy? But it is. It's something that actually helps you do it, facilitate that state on its own without your help, really.
So 3 things I want to reiterate, because that was awesome, but I really want to just pick some of the nuggets out of there for our listeners to understand how to get the benefit of this, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that you did mention, and this is important, I think, for us to reiterate this is kind of like going to the gym, right? Repetition is key. You can't just do this once or twice and then be like, oh, this doesn't work. It wouldn't work if you went to the gym and you were trying to rebuild your body, or if you were trying to clean up your diet if you did it once or twice. So this is no different. I mean, this is something that has to be habitual to get the benefit. The second thing that you talked to here was, you said ancestral type tones. And if you look back in history, and Nick knows a lot about this too, and Ian, I'm sure you're well versed in this is nothing new. You look back in ancient cultures and they knew the power of toning and mantra and certain frequencies. They knew how to tap into this technology of the body. And what you're speaking to, Ian, is there is a technology of this body, and there's ways for us to tap into it. And this is, like you're saying, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but this is such an easy way to do it. And for those people that have trouble maybe with meditation or other forms of this tapping into this ability and this technology of our body, this is sometimes just the easier route for people, just like it was for you. This is something that was just, it was the right tool for you to use.
Yeah.
Number 3. We're waiting for number 3.
Oh, and number 3. Well, and number 3, honestly, it was a mixture of 2 and 3, man. Number 1, this is nothing new. This is ancient type stuff. I mean, we're just in modern day, and we're still utilizing this same technology. And the other piece of that was, how simple, man. Just make it a habit. Why listen to just random music all day when you can just start implementing some of these tones into your daily routine in the car, or when you get home in the background when you're calming down for the day, right? And just make it a habit that way, because again, what's the energy return? Yeah. If I'm just going to listen to random music all day, I'm not going to get that energy return. But if I throw on some of these tracks and just start making that a habit, what's going to happen in 30 days for me?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks for bringing that together, David, because the takeaways from the immense amount of knowledge that Ian has is going to be what really helps people get this, and repetition's huge. You said a couple other things that I wanted to hit home for people, and the first one was that theta state. And I can't help but think of Bruce Lipton talking about, the biology of belief and how our perspective of our environments determine the neurophysiology, the biochemistry within, but also determines how we're relating to the world. And up until the age of 7, he talks about this all the time. We're in theta constantly. And this is how we are such efficient learners, bringing in language and bringing in, our community, and know who to trust and who not to. And so much learning is happening in the first 7 years of our life. And if we have a tool to reprogram it, maybe this is part of like the decision-making process when we're resonating this theta state inside of our brain through binaural beats and pure tones and sound frequency and everything. It's possible that we're like that vibrational state that encourages theta is helping to reprogram these new ways of being, and which we all need to tap into. It's like, we got to erase these old programs. We only have a certain amount of bandwidth that we can tap into on a daily basis. And if we can, sort of level the playing field, open up ourselves to this theta state, we can start to plug in the right information. And no doubt that vibrational increase allows us to make those better decisions and supports that theta state. So the next thing I want to say in regards to that, and feel free to jump in and comment there if you like, Ian, but the next piece is, tell us about what binaural beats are doing. You did such a great job of explaining whole tones, or pure tones, I should say. Please tell us, what is that binaural rhythm? Like what's actually happening there? And dive into that, please.
Okay, so I touched on it just a little bit in the last segment, but basically it's the two different tones being delivered in the left and right ear, and the uneven, by making it just a little bit off. And also you pinpoint the brainwave state that you want to go for. And so we used 4 hertz as that, idea of like the theta state, that we were going for, because I would say 90% of the time I'm making binaural beats for clients, like custom made. That's what we start with, because it's such a powerful one right off the bat. Because like you said, like what Bruce Lipton was saying, that it's such a highly programmable state. It's like in the state of theta, it's the state that you hit right before REM sleep, right? So you're basically, it's a very relaxed state, but it's also a high functioning brain level chemistry. You're basically Johnny number 5 from Short Circuit, need input, and it's like you're totally aware of everything that's coming in, and you're processing it and storing it like a hard drive, and you're basically connecting all the dots and seeing the predictable futures from this information that's coming in. It's that advanced. It's so powerful. It's a very powerful tool. So people love it for reprogramming the brain. And so how those two tones do that is basically the left and right hemispheres are like, they hear these two tones and the uneven, like 100 hertz and 104 hertz, and it hears this disorder and it just doesn't like it. So what it does to do that is the hemispheres synchronize and bring together to where you hear one tone with a little bit of a wobble, like a woo, 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 woo. And in that wobble, what it's doing is the brain actually starts mimicking the difference. So the brain actually hears in that middle, synchronization, the 4 hertz, because it's 100 hertz in one ear, 104 in the other, and the difference would be the 4 hertz. So in that 4 hertz being kind of enhanced, where the brain is starting to focus only on that 4 hertz, then the brain mimics that and it steps down its operations into that 4 hertz level, and that 4 hertz level would be the theta pattern. So you're basically inducing and helping to facilitate through those frequencies a step down pattern, where the brain starts to relax and starts to kind of be more observant, instead of running these patterns like, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to pay this bill, and it just starts stepping down and it starts observing more and it starts listening, and I believe it starts operating on almost a multi-dimensional level, where it's starting to process everything from body awareness to external awareness to on a multidimensional level, like the place that we go when we're dreaming, the different dimensions that we travel into during our modes of sleep. So I feel like it's a level of very diverse, intricate brain level function, where it's bringing into your awareness all the things that need to be observed. And I think that if you have a guide, like a hypnotherapist, a doctor, a life coach, someone that's helping you to facilitate these action words, I am, and speaking into what you want, like I am my perfect weight loss, I am my perfect sleep, I am my perfect state of being, and you start learning how to focus, with that brainwave state and hold an intention, and then like the mantras, incorporating that. I think that multi-dimensional, multifaceted approach is where people see huge breakthroughs with pain management, with, disorder, like my dyslexia. It was something that was just like, it almost in a 6-month period, like completely reversed all the things I had went through for my whole lifetime, with being my brain locking up, brain fog, frustration, trying to retain information, all of that stuff was like out the window, I would say 99%, So it was something that just really radically changed my life, listening to those frequencies and binaural beats.
Well, and one thing I want to add there is, and you guys will probably agree with me here, is there's only certain ways to tap into this technology of our body. This is one that you're speaking to, and there are other ways, like me and Nick. I mean, I experienced Kundalini yoga a couple of weeks ago, and its power to do this, right? And I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones, but one thing you said at the beginning of the podcast, Ian, you says, when I started first listening to these beats, I started to notice that I had more clarity to change my habits, to make better decisions. You were raising your vibration, your consciousness, and that created more awareness to where you could make those better decisions. And without a tool like this or using some of these other tools out there, I don't think this can be coached. Yes, somebody can coach you and tell you that you need to do these things, but you have to actionably implement these types of things into your lifestyle to get the benefit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me, brother, I mean, we talked about the dyslexia, the pain management. What other kind of things, real quick, do people benefit that you've worked with some of your clients that you help with?
Yeah, one of the guys that we worked with had pancreatic cancer, and he was having a surgery, and his wife contacted us and said, I've heard research that has shown that if you start working with intention and sound healing before surgery and after surgery, it can help with the healing time. And I said, I have never experienced that. I've heard, people bring that up, but I said, if you're willing to give it a try, let's, see what happens. And so one of the things that she said was that her husband was not a very touchy-feely kind of person, and she didn't know if he would really, listen to the music. And I asked her, I said, what kind of music does he listen to? And so we found some music that we offer, because we offer a lot of diverse range of genres and styles of music with these frequencies embedded. And so we found some music for him, and they started with 3 tracks. He would listen to one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one before bed. And so they did it as an exercise together. And she said about the 3rd day that he was listening that he just had an outpouring of tears where he got really emotional. And she was saying that she felt like it was really having a breakthrough with him. And so he listened to it for 2 weeks before the surgery, and she contacted me probably a month after the surgery, and she said, I just want to let you know that this music changed our life. She said that my husband and I have changed our nutrition, our diet. I turned them on to Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza. I told them you should get some of these books and read into, the information that they're bringing forward. And then I talked to her about, different nutritional books, and then gave her the music, And at the end, when she was sending this email, she was like, this is just a testimonial that the doctor actually told us, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because this is a 40% faster recovery time than we've ever seen with this surgery. And this is amazing. So keep doing whatever it is, that you're doing. And so I've worked with everything from autism, dyslexia, severe anxiety and panic attacks. We've worked with, my mother had cancer this past year, and I went home to take care of her. And part of what we did was we changed her nutrition to being vegan, getting her different protein sources, and then just getting her off of processed food and getting her into everything that she was eating was from her own garden. But we started working with singing bowls and binaural beats and started teaching her about the power of thought. Like every thought that you hold in your day is a source of food. It's something that's either, like you said, is it giving to your powerful, healing, or is it giving to pulling you down, to the place where you're wanting to get out of, and that decision. And so, we started talking to her about some of the sources of entertainment. Sources of music, sources of movies, and the news, and all these things that she was doing. And so we just had her switch some of her basic routines. It wasn't a huge deal, but it took 8 months. She had breast cancer and her lymph nodes and thyroid cancer, and they didn't, it was a very hard road, but 8 months later she was cancer free. They can't say she's cancer free, but she's cancer free. You know what I mean? And so I've seen huge changes. Like for myself, I was 312 pounds in 2011, and so 2011, 2012, 312 pounds at my heaviest, and now I'm down to about 215, 210. I'd fluctuate a little bit there, but it was huge. And when people saw that change in my weight and change in my mental state, that's when they started trying it. So a lot of my friends who were suffering from addiction, people who were dealing with major depression, clinical depression, have gotten off of their medicine. I had a friend who was diabetic who's off of their medicine, and they changed their diet. It completely changed their body. It's just amazing. It's on all levels. I've seen it from mental to physical change people. I'll bring this up. Last one. one of my friends who was in a job for 15 years, he started it when he was just out of high school, and felt extremely stuck. And he came to 3 of our sonic meditations over about a 2-month period. And he literally was in tears the 3rd one that he came to. And he said, I just feel this music so deeply that it makes me change my relation to life. Like, he's like, I'm looking at life in a different way. And he literally went into work, quit his job with no idea of what he was going to do. And then a week later found his dream job, where he was just super excited about the company that it was a startup company. It was just something that he had wanted to do. And he was so afraid to take that chance. I think the vibration just recalibrated him in a way that he felt more trusting, where he was like, I'm just going to go for it. Life is short. I don't want to be miserable for the rest of my life. So I think I've seen it on so many levels help a lot of different people out of different situations. I think it's a very personal relationship to sound. It's something that really people really truly experience in a different way.
Well, it's like you said, man, you're clearing the cobwebs, right? Like, I like that analogy. Another one that I heard a couple of weeks ago was, we're like a tuning fork. You're calibrating your tuning fork, or you're tuning your guitar, right? Yeah. So every day, and that's what's helping, giving these people the ability for their healing and this awareness and that consciousness to just be in a better place with their lives. Mm-hmm. Buddy, keep it up, man. You're an influencer. You're changing people's lives, and this is something that I think the world needs to know more about. And the more people you educate and teach, the more healing we're going to get across the spectrum, man. So a couple of things, man. I want people to know where they can find you. So kind of let them know that. And then we talk a little bit about one of the things we give all of our listeners is home play at the end of each episode. And this is, I believe you had a track, or you're going to send them somewhere to start listening to some stuff, and then give them the homework of how often they need to listen to it, and make some recommendations there.
Yeah. So, man, my favorite track, and I feel like it's our most purchased track and our most licensed track, which is called the Belief Code 21. And it's actually Greg Braden, if you guys are familiar with him. He's a Hay House author. But Greg Braden, in his book Spontaneous Healing, he talked about Belief Code 21. And it was basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically like, the thing that has brought you harm can be reversed and be the thing that brings the healing, to your body. And I just always thought that was a really powerful statement. And so I kind of made that a mantra and just kind of stayed on that for a couple weeks. And when I started writing the song and, it was time to name it, I was like, Belief Code 21, so I named it Belief Code 21. And it's in 390.6 hertz. And in the solfeggio scale, 396 is actually the root chakra. So this would be just below the root chakra on that system. But I feel like it's a very grounding, peaceful frequency, almost like it would be the frequency of peace. You know what I mean? It's across the board when we've used it, from old to young, different ethnicities, different cultures. Everyone has been having the same experience with it. And it was a frequency that was downloaded to me in meditation. I was meditating. And it's like I just saw the number in my mind's eye, 390.6, like a stamp. Like it just kept being like stamped onto my, mind's eye. And so when I came out of meditation, I got my frequency generator and I put it on 390.6, and I just listened to the pure tone. And I was like, man, this is a phenomenal frequency. And I was like, I've got to start using this with songs. And so when I started experimenting with friends and family before we took it to the public, everyone that put it on was asleep like in 7 minutes. Like it was just like boom. And when I was actually listening back to it in the studio, I laid on the floor just like feeling the vibration, and I fell asleep for 6 hours when I listened to it the first time. So it was like this huge, powerful response with that. But that's what I would like to give to your listeners, is that they can get that 390.6, and I can send that to you guys.
We'll put that in the show notes, so we'll have a link there so you guys can hook up with that and start listening to that. And then how often would you tell them to listen to this track?
Yeah, so most of the time what we do is just to relax in the morning when they wake up, is they'll listen for 3 to 5 minutes and just kind of get a little kind of touch up, and then in the evening is when I would really say that this is a really powerful track. And I would say, you know, about 10 minutes before they're going to bed, get their headphones out and, you know, plug up to their iPhone or iPod or whatever they're doing, and just kind of set an intention, you know, in their mind saying, you know, I am my perfect sleep. I am my perfect relaxation, and just kind of saying that as they're putting on headphones and doing some simple breath work, just resting breath, you know, 5 or 6, you know, deep inhales and 5 or 6 exhales, about the same, about 5 seconds. And so basically setting an intention, doing some resting breath work, and then listening to the track. And most people are asleep before it's over, and it's a 12-minute song.
Oh, I can believe it, man. I've already listened to some of your stuff, and it makes me knock out. I get so relaxed that I am out, man. Like, I have to wake up in the middle of the night, pull the headphones off, and push my phone off to the side because I'm out. It's awesome, man. So I'm excited for our listeners to start downloading that, listening to that. And then where does everybody find you, man? Where can people hook up with you and see more of your stuff? And
yeah. So listeningtosmile.com is the website, and there's lots of information on there. They can listen to the music on there, but it also has information about the frequencies and sound and, you know, everything from music to the sacred frequencies. There's actually a page called Sacred Frequencies. So there's a lot of information on the site where they can learn more about me and the music as well.
It's amazing. Ian, and you're partnering up with some big companies as well. I say this just to add sort of credibility to the fact that there's some industry movers that are starting to recognize just the power of the sound healing. Do you mind just saying a couple of quick words about that?
Yeah, no problem. We've got invited to do a TED Talk, TEDx, and then we're right outside of Pittsburgh, working, getting in the door, moving forward with Carnegie Mellon University to set up research with the music, and then we're finishing our book right now. It's like basically a handbook for how to use this music and kind of how to set up protocols and to get the most out of it. It's basically a handbook for listening to Smile, and fingers crossed, but it looks like, you know, we're going to try to do that through Hay House, and it's pretty exciting. So there's a lot of really amazing things on the table right now.
Oh, I totally believe it, man. And we need to have you back on when the book comes out and all that stuff, so we can help with that as well.
And one other note there too, just because obviously we're doctors, this is stuff that I've already sent to patients of mine. I got them to listen to a bunch of your tracks. I love the Belief Code. I think it's phenomenal. But there's going to be other doctors that are going to want to know how they can implement this in their practice. Do they go to the same link, or is there something different for practitioners?
Yeah, so on our website, there's at the top, there's a services page, and at that, there's a sonic meditation affiliate. And so basically, the affiliates are using this music in different ways. Some people are, you know, practitioners or clinical practices that are using it through the practice or their office. And then there's people who are on individual level, like we have neuroscientists, life coaches, yoga teachers, holistic center owners that are using it as well. But there's an application form on there, and they'll just fill out it's very basic information, and then we set up a call to see if it's the right pairing, you know, to see if we're on the same page with how we're going to approach. And then basically every month they get a new album to work with, and they have the ability to resell the music to clients. They have the ability to make individual products. Like a lot of people will use the tracks from that affiliate program to develop products of their own, like guided meditations, you know, hypnotherapists, you know, will use it for like binaural beats and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that they can use it. And a lot of people like the program because they also can use it in commercials for their business. You know, they have the licensing to use it for even on that level as well. So it's pretty cool.
Ian, I need you to build me a custom track, man. That sounds exciting.
Okay. I was just imagining David's soothing voice as I go off to sleep in your soothing sleep
as
track.
You drift off into sleep every night.
You will sleep amazing.
Yeah. And hey, man, I wish I lived closer. I want to experience this sonic meditation thing you guys do. That sounds amazing. It sounds like a really neat event to attend.
Yeah, our next one is actually August 15th in downtown Pittsburgh. We're at this place called Om Lounge. It's a yoga studio, and it's a really cool place. But We're actually, hopefully we'll be able to bring it to you soon. Like, we're shooting a 4 to 6 minute video that actually goes through the process of what a sonic meditation is to explain it to people. And that way, hopefully, as soon as we get that made, we can shoot that over to you and your listeners, and they can check it out.
Well, yeah, great. Please send that to us, because then we'll link it to the podcast, of course, but then we can also share it on our social media so people can get a taste of that.
Okay.
And then if we're ever in Pittsburgh, I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
All right, Ian, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. And we definitely look forward to chatting with you again and diving more into sound healing.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. It was really awesome.
Thank you, brother. Great to meet you. Great to talk to you, man.
Yeah. I'm going to send you guys over personally some albums to check out.
I'd love it, man.
Yeah.
Okay. All the best, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the Dr. Dads and share with your family and friends. You can also follow and interact with Dr. Nick and Dr. David on Facebook and Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration and the latest in health and wellness. Be well.